Before you use your snares, whether they be cable, wire, or string, you need to take and rub them in dirt or along a honeysuckle bush or something along that line so that you'll get rid of the human scent that's on the snare. Next, you'll need to know where your game is coming from, going to, and what it's eating. And in this case, I'm just going to use this run that comes between the fence and these scrub brushes and around this onion plant and into a hole. For my anchor point, I'm just going to run my loop around the top of the fence and then run my snare through that loop, and then I'm going to cinch it up. Because this is a funnel point around this brush, I want to set two traps, one where he's coming in and one where he's coming out. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying not to disturb anything around me or leave my human scent around. Now I'm just going to take my loop and I'm just going to hang it over a piece of that brush, and then I'm going to kind of take and create like a little natural funnel around it so that it'll funnel the animal into my trap. When setting up your funnel around your snare traps, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, because animals do not like to climb over things when they're on their travel path, so to speak. Now I'm going to do the same thing on my other side. So now I've got my other loop kind of in the middle of the run, and again I'm just going to take and put some leaves around and try to block it off so that it will force the animal into my snare. And there we have our snare traps leading over to the hole. This is what I'm talking about, the versatility of the wire snare. As you can see, I have this one set up just as a standalone and run through the fence. And I have one on this side of the run, and then I have another set up on the other side of the run. Then I have four set up as a run for either a squirrel or bird or something along that line, set up on this tree branch. Then I have this one over the entrance of a hole that I dug just for representative purposes, and I've got it just used as a standalone, stake to the ground, and I'll show you how to set up this one to use with an engine. To make a trigger, you're going to use the straightest part of your stick, so I'm going to cut this other end off, and I'm just going to use, like I said, this knife that I made in the first video I did. I'm going to cut this stick into two pieces, with the first one being about 4 or 5 inches long and the other one being about 8 inches long. So now that I have my two sticks, I'm going to cut notches in them in opposing directions so that they'll hook together like so. And again, I'm going to use the back side of my knife just to take and cut a notch about halfway through the stick, and then I'm going to carve down to it, and this is going to be the anchor side of my engine snare trap. Now I'm going to take and carve a point down on it, and there you have it. And if you're wondering what type of wood this is actually from an okra plant that was left in the garden over the winter, and the plant itself turned into wood. Real lightweight, easy to carve. The first thing I'm going to do with my piece of wood I'm going to use for my top trigger that's going to run to the engine itself is I'm going to cut a notch around the top right here, about 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch way down, all the way around, so that when I tie it on, my cordage won't slip. And again, I'm just going to use the back side of my knife, and I'm just going to cut a groove, about 1/8 of an inch deep all the way around it. However big a notch you decide to make in this is dependent upon the size of the cordage that you're going to use. Now I'm going to take and carve a notch in the other end so that I can carve down to it. And again, I'm just going to go about halfway through the stick. And then I'm going to carve down to that. So this is what your two-piece trigger system will look like once you get it carved out. Your cordage will go up here, your trap will go down here, and when the trap is triggered, this piece will come off, releasing the stored energy of the trap. To set up my wire snare in front of a hole, I have the loop in front of a hole, and then on the tail end of the wire, I have a piece of cordage tied to it that runs to the bottom of the trigger. Then from the top of the trigger, I have it run up to a branch that has been bent over to give it energy. So when the animal trips the trigger, it releases the energy stored in the branch. And that's why I'm partial to the wire snare, because like I said, I've set up 3 or 4 different traps using just one style. Now let's move on to the string snare. For my cordage or string type snare, I have my loop over my hole. Then I have the line running from the loop to my trigger kind of tight so that it'll increase its sensitivity. Then just as the wire type snare, I have a string running from the top of my trigger to an engine. And this one works just the same way. Now, contrary to popular belief, you don't have to go to an exotic location to learn any type of bushcraft skill. You can do it in your backyard. In fact, you need to do it in your backyard so that you'll get practice. And in doing so, that also accomplishes 3 things. 1, it gets you out of the house, off the couch, and outside and enjoying the outdoors. 2, it gives you knowledge. Knowledge is the greatest piece of gear that you have. And 3, it gives you confidence, so that in the event you have to use that knowledge, instead of saying, can I do this, you say, I can do this. And being confident in a grid down or disaster type situation is paramount, not just to your morale, but to your loved ones and your family's morale. So thank y'all for watching, and see y'all next time.